Imagine a winter afternoon in 1898, children laughing as they play in the soft snow of Central Park. Their joy seems timeless, their innocence untouched. Yet hidden within the folds of a century-old photograph, a shadow waits, silent, still, and unsettling. No one at the time noticed him. But when the photograph resurfaced more than 100 years later, archivists saw something that would make them question everything they thought they knew about this seemingly ordinary day. As they examined every detail, the children's expressions, the bare trees, even the buildings in the distance, they discovered patterns that hinted at a darker story. A presence, a watcher, a figure out of place in time, captured without warning. Who was he? Why was he there? And what secrets had been frozen into the film for all these years, waiting for someone to uncover them? Tonight, we follow the trail of that photograph, a mysterious observer, and the brave woman whose lens may have captured truths that authorities of her time could not or would not see. The year is 2024. In the quiet, almost sacred halls of the New York Historical Society archivist Margaret Chen carefully lifts a photograph that has lain untouched for over a century. The sepia-toned image captures children playing in Central Park in 1898. Their Victorian-era clothes contrast sharply with the timeless joy etched on their faces. Yet what Margaret and her team are about to uncover will challenge everything they believed about this seemingly innocent moment in history. Margaret adjusts her white cotton gloves and gently places the photograph under the high-resolution scanner. At 62, she has spent nearly 4 decades cataloging New York's photographic past. But something about this particular image has always stirred her curiosity. It had been anonymously donated 3 months prior, tucked away in a worn leather portfolio with no notes, no explanations, just the image itself. The clarity, it's remarkable. For 1898, she murmurs to her colleague Dr. James Whitmore, a forensic photograph analyst devoted to authenticating historical images. Winter light filters through the tall windows, casting long shadows across mahogany tables cluttered with archives. James leans closer, the glow of the scanner reflected in his wire-rimmed glasses. The photographer knew exactly what they were doing. Look at the composition, the way the children's movements are captured. Naturally, he says, his voice carrying the quiet reverence of someone who has spent a lifetime decoding the artistry of early photography. In the clearing, approximately 15 children scatter across a light dusting of snow in what seems to be sheep meadow. Some are playing tag, their breath forming tiny clouds in the cold air. Others are building a modest snowman, though the snow is thin. Hinting at one of those rare, mild December days in New York, Margaret begins the painstaking digitization, scanning each section to capture every detail. I want to study the clothing, the architecture in the background, anything that might help date this more precisely or identify the photographer, she whispers. As the first section completes, both archivists lean forward. Digital enhancement brings out details invisible to the naked eye. The children's faces emerge with clarity, pure delight, innocent laughter. A little girl in a dark wool coat seems to be giggling at something just outside the frame. 2 boys in knickers and suspenders are caught mid-chase, cheeks flushed from cold and exertion. Look at the background. James points to the screen. See the Dakota under construction. That narrows our time frame significantly. Margaret nods, jotting notes in her leather-bound journal. The Dakota, the famed Upper West Side apartment building, had been completed in 1884. Yet the photograph shows scaffolding around an adjacent structure. Her knowledge of New York's architectural history tells her this small detail is crucial for authentication. They continue scanning meticulously, section by section. Every segment reveals new textures, the weave of children's garments, the bare branches of elms that would later fall to disease, primitive lighting fixtures in distant buildings. Then, in the lower right corner, everything shifts. James suddenly stops mid-sentence, face-pale eyes fixed on the monitor. Margaret, looking up from her notes, sees him frozen in place. "James, what is it?" she asks, setting her pen down. He doesn't reply immediately. Instead, he adjusts contrast and brightness, zooming in on the corner. Margaret moves to view the screen from his angle. And there it is, hidden partially by the shadow of a massive oak, almost invisible, unless one knows exactly where to look a figure. But this is no ordinary bystander. The man stands unnaturally still among the children, and his clothing is unmistakably not of the Victorian era. That's not 1898 clothing. Margaret whispers, voice barely audible in the hushed archive. James pushes the digital enhancement to its limits. The figure grows clearer, though grainy, a relic trapped in time, frozen in the photograph's shadowy corner. The man seems to be wearing what could only be described as a modern overcoat. More disturbing still, he watches the children with an intensity that feels wrong, predatory even. Margaret leans closer, whispering to herself. Could this be a double exposure, though her tone betrays the doubt in her own words? James shakes his head slowly. Look at the shadows, the consistency of the light. If this were a double exposure, there would be ghosting, transparency effects. But this figure is as solid and present as the children themselves. For several long, tense minutes, they sit in stunned silence. The weight of what they've discovered begins to settle in. Margaret's hands tremble slightly as she lifts her phone to photograph the screen, creating a backup of the unsettling image. "We need to call in additional experts," she finally says, voice barely above a whisper. "Photographic forensics, historical clothing specialists, perhaps even law enforcement." James nods grimly. "But first we must examine every inch of this photograph. If there's one anomaly, there could be others." They return to the painstaking scanning now with a sense of urgency and unease that had not existed before. The once innocent scene of children at play now feels shadowed, sinister. Every background figure, every corner of the frame becomes suspect. As the afternoon wanes, the winter sunlight stretching long shadows across the archive floor, they discover something else. In the far left of the photograph, barely visible, behind a dense cluster of evergreen bushes, there appears to be another figure. Indistinct, almost a whisper in the frame, but the posture suggests deliberate concealment, a watchful presence, lingering unseen by the children. Margaret's phone rings, suddenly startling them from their focus. It's her supervisor, Dr. Elizabeth Harper, calling from down the hall. "Margaret, I just received a call from the NYPD's cold case unit. They're requesting access to our archives for a case. Something about missing children from the 1890s. The phone nearly slips from Margaret's hand. She exchanges a loaded glance with James before replying. "Dr. Harper, you need to see this immediately. There's something in the Central Park photograph, something you must see." 20 minutes later, Dr. Harper stands behind them, her usually composed demeanor shaken as she studies the enhanced image on the monitor. At 55, she has overseen thousands of historical discoveries, yet nothing could have prepared her for this. "Have you verified the photograph's authenticity?" she asks, voice tight with concern. James pulls up the technical analysis on a second monitor. Every test confirms it's a genuine 1898 silver gelatin print. Paper chemical composition aging patterns, all consistent with the period. No modern forgery, no digital manipulation. Dr. Harper removes her glasses and wipes them nervously, a habit Margaret knows well, one reserved for moments of deep unease. The police inquiry. Detective Sarah Rodriguez from the Cold Case Unit. Dr. Harper continues. She's investigating a series of child disappearances from the 1890s that were never solved. There were reports of a man who would watch children in Central Park, and several of those children disappeared shortly after being seen with him. The temperature in the room seems to drop. Margaret tightens her cardigan around herself, the implications sinking in. "You're suggesting this photograph might have captured?" she begins, voice faltering, unable to finish. "I'm not suggesting anything." Yet Dr. Harper replies cautiously. "But Detective Rodriguez will want to see this immediately. She's been trying to connect these disappearances. Visual evidence from the period could be invaluable." James saves their work and prepares high-resolution prints of the enhanced sections. What do we know about the photographer? Any documentation about how this image came to be? Margaret shakes her head. Nothing. No credit, no notes anonymously donated. As if someone wanted this preserved but wanted to remain hidden themselves. As evening falls and the archive empties of its usual researchers, the three colleagues continue their analysis. They have created a meticulous digital map of the photograph, every figure, every anomaly, every detail that feels out of place, suspicious, or just wrong. The children in the foreground remain blissfully innocent, their laughter frozen in time, unaware of the darker undertones creeping into the scene. Yet, the presence of the watching figures casts a shadow that twists the charm of this historical snapshot into something far more sinister. Detective Rodriguez arrives just as the building's evening security rounds begin. She is a woman in her early 40s, sharp-eyed with the quiet authority of someone who has witnessed humanity's darker corners. Her presence adds a weight of official seriousness to what had begun as a routine archival examination. "Show me what you found," she says, without preamble, settling into a chair beside the monitors. Margaret carefully guides her through the discovery, starting with the scanning process, progressing to the digitally enhanced images of the mysterious figures. Detective Rodriguez examines each frame closely, sometimes asking for different angles or magnifications. "This matches witness descriptions we have on file," she murmurs. In 1898 and 1899, at least 8 children disappeared from the Central Park area. Parents reported seeing their children talking to or approached by a man matching this general description. James opens historical weather records on his laptop, the light snowfall, the children's winter coats, the bare branches of the trees. This photograph was almost certainly taken in December 1898 or January 1899. He notes quietly, right in the time frame you're investigating. Detective Rodriguez nods gravely. 3 of those children vanished in December 1898 alone. The cases went cold because there was no physical evidence, no photographs, nothing concrete. Witness reports were inconsistent and photography wasn't commonly used in police work at the time. But now, we have this. A visual record that might show the perpetrator stalking his victims. The weight of the discovery presses down on the room. What they had unearthed was not mere historical curiosity. It was potentially crucial evidence in a string of crimes unsolved for over a century. Margaret studies the children's innocent faces on the photograph, her heart heavy with the thought that some of them may have met tragic fates shortly after this moment was captured. The photographer, whoever they were, may have unknowingly documented not just a pleasant afternoon in the park, but the final carefree moments in the lives of several young souls. What happens now? She asks, her voice soft, almost fragile. Now Detective Rodriguez replies, we dig deeper. Every missing child case from that period will be examined. Witness descriptions will be cross-referenced. We'll look for any other photographic evidence that might exist. This photograph could be the key to finally understanding what happened to those children. As the detective prepares to leave with copies of the enhanced images, she turns to the archivists. You've done important work here today. These children and their families have waited over a century for answers. Perhaps now, they will finally get some. Once she departs, Margaret James and Dr. Harper remain in the archive surrounded by the tools of their trade, yet feeling far removed from ordinary academic pursuits. The photograph rests on the scanner, seeming innocuous under the soft glow of the desk lamps. Yet none of them can look at it the same way again. Do you think there are other photographs like this? James asks quietly. Other anonymous donations that might contain similar evidence? Dr. Harper considers this, her expression sober. It's possible. And now, we have a responsibility. We must examine our collections with new eyes. Margaret carefully returns the original photograph to its archival housing. Yet she knows the digital images will continue to reveal their secrets. Modern technology has allowed them to see what investigators over a century ago could never have detected. But it has also burdened them with a knowledge that feels almost too heavy to bear. The following morning brings a flurry of activity to the New York Historical Society. Detective Rodriguez returns, accompanied by specialists including a forensic photographer and a historical clothing expert. News of the discovery has reached the media, though details are tightly controlled to protect the integrity of the investigation. Margaret fields calls from journalists, documentary filmmakers, and amateur historians, all eager to learn more about the mysterious photograph. Yet, her focus remains on the task at hand, analyzing the image and sifting through the society's vast collections for anything connected. James has spent the night researching 1890s photographic techniques, trying to understand how such clear detail could have been captured in what seems like available light. His conclusion: the photographer was highly skilled, likely a professional. And yet, why this image was taken and why it remained anonymous for so many decades remains an unsettling mystery. Mid-morning, Dr. Patricia Morse, a clothing expert from the Fashion Institute of Technology, arrives to examine the enhanced images. Her analysis confirms their suspicions. The figure in the shadows is dressed in clothing inconsistent with 1898 fashion. The cut of the overcoat, the style of the hat, it all aligns more with the early 1900s, perhaps even the 1910s. But that's not necessarily impossible, she explains gently. Wealthy individuals sometimes had clothing made in the latest European styles years before they became common in America. While this provides a rational explanation for the clothing anomaly, it does little to account for the darker, more disturbing aspects of the figure's presence or the intensity with which he observes the children. Meanwhile, Detective Rodriguez has been coordinating with the NYPD's Historical Archives Division gathering all available records from the missing children cases of 1898 and 1899. The files are thin by modern standards. Policing in that era relied heavily on witness statements and rudimentary searches with little documentation or standardized procedures for missing persons investigations. What we have, she explains to the assembled team, are the reports filed by parents, some witness statements, and a few search records. No photographs of the children, no detailed suspect descriptions, no systematic investigation methodology. She spreads the case files across a large research table. Each file represents a family's tragedy, a child who never returned home, parents left without answers. Margaret examines them carefully, reading each handwritten report on official police department letterhead. They tell stories of desperate searches, false leads, and gradually fading hope. "Look at this pattern," she says, pointing to dates and locations noted in several files. Most of the children were last seen in or near Central Park during afternoon hours, usually playing with friends or siblings. James adds, "And according to the weather records I've compiled, December 1898 had several unseasonably warm days that would have drawn families to the park despite winter's chill." Slowly, the pieces of a century-old puzzle begin to form a picture, though many crucial elements remain missing. The photograph has provided the first concrete visual evidence, yet it has also opened new questions. Later, Dr. Harper receives a call that brings another twist to their investigation. An elderly woman named Rose Hamilton claims her grandmother left her a collection of photographs from the 1890s, including images taken in Central Park. She has been following news coverage and believes some of her grandmother's materials could be related. That afternoon, Rose arrives, accompanied by her grandson Michael, a man in his 30s who works in digital restoration. At 87, Rose is sharp and articulate, carrying a wooden box resembling an antique photography storage case. "My grandmother was Emily Thornton," she explains carefully as she opens the box. She was an amateur photographer, quite unusual for a woman in those days. She documented much of New York street life and park scenes. Inside the box are dozens of glass plate negatives and period prints carefully preserved and organized by date and location. Margaret and James exchange excited glances. This could be exactly the related evidence they have been searching for. Michael helps set up a portable light table they brought with them. "Grandmother always said she had photographs that troubled her," he explains, "but she never told us why. She kept them separate from her other work." As they begin examining Emily Thornton's collection, several images immediately draw attention. Like the anonymous donation, these photographs capture daily life in Central Park during the 1890s, yet they reveal a careful eye for composition and detail an artist's touch in documenting ordinary moments. Then Margaret spots it, a photograph dated January 1899, showing the same area of Central Park as their mysterious image, but from a different angle. And there, unmistakable, is the same figure in the background, watching a different group of children at play. There she whispers, her voice tight, with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Same man, same behavior, different day. The implications are staggering. What they have uncovered is not just a single random photograph that happened to capture suspicious activity. They are witnessing evidence of a pattern, a chilling record of predatory behavior spanning multiple occasions. Rose Hamilton examines the enhanced images with a magnifying glass. Grandmother never spoke about this directly, she recalls, but I remember her saying she stopped photographing in Central Park because she kept seeing things that made her uncomfortable. Detective Rodriguez has been quietly taking notes throughout the afternoon, her expression growing darker with each discovery. This changes everything, she says softly. We're not looking at an isolated incident anymore. This is documented serial predatory behavior. As the day progresses, the team identifies 3 more photographs from Emily Thornton's collection, showing the same figure in Central Park. In each image, he positions himself to watch children at play, always at a distance, always partially concealed by trees or landscape features. James begins creating a timeline, mapping the dates and locations of each photograph against the missing children reports. The correlation is chilling. Each photograph aligns closely with the date when a child vanished from the same general area of the park. Emily Thornton may have unknowingly documented one of New York's earliest serial predators, James concludes. And perhaps she realized it herself, which would explain why she stopped photographing in the park and kept these images separate from her other work. The haunting question lingers: why never go to the police? Rose offers a possible explanation drawn from family stories passed down through generations. Emily Thornton was a woman striving to pursue photography at a time when it was considered inappropriate for ladies. She was already struggling for recognition in a male-dominated field. To approach the authorities with what might have seemed like wild accusations based on photographs alone, images of a man simply standing in a public park would likely have been dismissed outright. Yet, the photographs themselves reveal Emily Thornton's growing awareness. Arranged chronologically, the later images show more deliberate framing, as though she was consciously documenting the man's behavior while remaining unseen herself. Detective Rodriguez studies the progression of images with a professional's eye. She was conducting her own surveillance, she notes. These photographs depict someone recognizing dangerous behavior and attempting to gather evidence. The final photograph in Emily Thornton's Central Park series, dated February 1899, is the clearest of all. The suspicious figure stands near the same oak tree, visible in the original anonymous photograph. But here, he appears to be interacting with a young boy who matches the description of one of the missing children. Margaret feels a chill run down her spine. This could be a documentation of an actual abduction in progress. The boy seems to be walking away from the play area with the man, though the image quality cannot determine whether this is voluntary or coerced. What is certain is that it represents the most direct evidence they have of contact between the figure and a potential victim. As evening falls, the team works under the warm glow of the archive lamps, assembling what amounts to a photographic case file spanning several months. The images tell a story of predatory behavior, careful stalking, and ultimately interaction with children who would disappear. Rose Hamilton agrees to donate her grandmother's photographs to the Historical Society, recognizing their importance as both historical documents and potential evidence. Grandmother would have wanted these to serve justice, she says simply. She carried the weight of what she witnessed for the rest of her life. The anonymous donor of the original photograph remains a mystery. Yet, the team has formed a theory given the exceptional quality of that image and its stylistic similarity to Emily Thornton's work. It may have been captured by someone who also noticed the suspicious activity but was unable or unwilling to come forward at the time. Detective Rodriguez has coordinated with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, sharing the photographs and historical case files. Though the crimes lie far beyond any statute of limitations, the documentation provides invaluable insight into early patterns of serial predatory behavior, silent evidence of a darkness that haunted Central Park over a century ago. These photographs represent some of the earliest recorded evidence of stalking behavior. Detective Rodriguez explains that from a historical law enforcement perspective, they are significant even if no formal charges could ever be brought. The discovery has also captured the attention of academic researchers studying the history of crime and investigative techniques. The images offer a rare glimpse into both the methods of predators in the 1890s and the limitations faced by law enforcement at the time. Margaret has spent considerable time researching Emily Thornton's life and career. She was a pioneering female photographer, one of the first women in New York to earn a living through her lens. Her work captured a city in transformation, documenting both the changing streets and the lives of its inhabitants. With an artist's eye for detail and a keen interest in human behavior, Margaret explains Emily's regular presence in Central Park placed her in a unique position to notice patterns that others might have missed. The photographs also offer insight into Central Park itself in the 1890s. Less developed than today, with open spaces and fewer formal paths, it provided ample opportunities for both predators and potential witnesses to remain unseen while observing others. James has been using photographic enhancement software to extract every possible detail. While the technology struggles with 1890s images, they have clarified enough to produce a general description of the suspicious figure, a Caucasian male, roughly 30 to 40 years old, above average height, well-dressed in clothing consistent with upper middle-class status. He reads aloud from his notes. This aligns with witness descriptions from several missing children cases. The social implications are as striking as the criminal ones. A well-dressed man of means would have been above suspicion in 1890s New York. Class distinctions were rigid, and the notion that someone of apparent wealth could prey on children would have been difficult for authorities to accept. Dr. Harper has been fielding inquiries from museums and law enforcement agencies nationwide, all interested in the photographs and their insights into historical crime patterns. The discovery has reignited interest in other cold cases from the era. We may have opened a door, she observes, to patterns of behavior that were previously invisible to historical analysis. These images document crimes that otherwise left no trace. As their investigation enters its second week, the team has established a timeline spanning December 1898 through February 1899. The photographs correspond closely with missing children, reports witness sightings, and ultimately with the cessation of both the disappearances and Emily Thornton's photography in Central Park. The final piece of the puzzle comes from an unexpected source. Michael Hamilton Rose's grandson has been digitally restoring his great-great-grandmother's photographs. "Look at this," he says, pointing to the February 1899 image they had believed showed the clearest interaction between the figure and a potential victim. "I enhanced the background, and there's something else. Partially concealed behind a distant tree, another figure emerges. A woman, camera in hand, positioned to observe and perhaps document the interaction in the foreground. Margaret stares, breath-catching. Emily Thornton wasn't merely photographing at random. She was conducting deliberate surveillance, attempting to gather evidence. This revelation adds another layer to the story. Emily Thornton had recognized the pattern of predatory behavior and worked to document it, perhaps with the hope of alerting authorities. Detective Rodriguez studies the enhanced image carefully. This shows premeditation, she notes. She positioned herself to observe and document, fully aware of the significance of what she witnessed. Why then did she never report it? Rose Hamilton offers an answer drawn from family history. According to oral accounts, Emily attempted to bring her concerns to the police in early 1899, but she was dismissed. Officers suggested she was imagining things, that a gentleman of his standing would never behave so, and that she should stop photographing in the park if it caused her such thoughts. This response reflects the era's social attitudes. Women's observations, particularly when they implicated men of apparent social rank, were often dismissed. What would today be considered crucial evidence was at the time written off as the overactive imagination of a woman engaging in activities deemed improper for her gender. Frustrated but undeterred, Emily continued her surveillance for several more weeks, accumulating the photographic evidence that her descendants would, over a century later, finally bring to light. The disappearances came to an abrupt halt in March 1899, coinciding with Emily Thornton's final photographs of Central Park. Whether the predator became aware of being watched, circumstances in his life changed, or some other unseen factor intervened, remains unknown. Detective Rodriguez has compiled a comprehensive report of their findings to be submitted to both the NYPD's historical archives and the FBI's database on serial crime patterns. While no criminal charges can be pursued after more than a century, the case provides invaluable insight into early patterns of predatory behavior and the limitations faced by law enforcement of that era. The photographs themselves have been carefully preserved, becoming part of the New York Historical Society's permanent collection. They serve as both historical documents and as a testament to Emily Thornton's courage. Her quiet determination to observe and record criminal behavior in a society that often refused to take women seriously. Margaret often finds herself returning to study the images lingering on the faces of the children captured in those final fleeting moments of innocent play. Their expressions of joy and carefree happiness are poignant reminders, not only of what was lost for the individual victims and their families, but of how predators once moved undetected through a bustling city, unnoticed by those around them. The investigation has prompted the Historical Society to examine its other photographic collections, more closely searching for evidence that may have been preserved unwittingly by amateur and professional photographers of past eras. As winter deepens and the investigation draws to a close, the team reflects on the weight of their discovery. No crimes have been solved in the conventional sense, but they have illuminated acts that time might otherwise have erased entirely. The children playing in Central Park in 1898, frozen in a moment of pure joy, have found their voices again through Emily Thornton's lens and the careful dedication of those who finally understood the story her photographs were trying to tell. The mysterious figure lurking in the shadows who believed he had acted with impunity in an age before modern investigative methods has been exposed by the very technology he could never have imagined. His crimes may remain beyond earthly justice, but they are no longer hidden. The patterns he left behind now offer insight that may help protect children even today. In the quiet of the archive, surrounded by the tools and documents of historical preservation, Margaret James and Dr. Harper complete work that bridges past and present, crime and justice, silence and truth. The photograph that began, "It all children playing in Central Park in 1898," can never again be seen as simply a charming historical image. It has become something far more profound evidence of humanity's capacity for both innocence and evil, and a testament to the power of careful observation, of preservation, and of time itself to reveal truths that might otherwise have remained forever hidden.